Today, our topic of discussion is cervical carcinoma. It's a very important topic, and we will discuss about its epidemiology, etiology, its risk factors, its screening, in which its PAP test is very important in its screening, and questions related to PAP tests are very sometimes confusing. So we will try to make clear about all the different conditions in which the testing is required or not, or when, and diagnosis, its management and prevention also, and what we can do in pregnancy if a patient gives abnormal tests, and at the end we will have some practice MCQs so that we should have clear situation in our minds about cervical carcinoma. Now let's start. Its definition is actually it is a malignant tumor arising from lining epithelium of cervix. So it's a malignant tumor that arises from the lining epithelium of cervix, and epidemiology, its 90% type is squamous cell carcinoma, 5% of it is adenocarcinoma, and average age at presentation is 52 years old. Patients mostly present with it. Etiology, we see here, this is cervix, so we see it is external os, and here we have columnar epithelium, and outside here we have squamous epithelium. So here it is columnar, here it is squamous, and the original squamocolumnar junction is here, where there is squamous ends here and columnar starts. So this second circle is original squamocolumnar junction, and this the area between the original squamocolumnar junction between columnar and this squamous epithelium. This area is actually the transitional zone. This area, original squamocolumnar junction, so in this area inside it is transitional zone. What happens? This actually situation is at birth. At birth, the vagina is lined by squamous epithelium. Columnar epithelium lines only the endocervix, and the central area of the ectocervix is actually the original squamocolumnar junction. What happens at puberty? Estrogen stimulates eversion of the single columnar layer, thus exposing it to the acidic pH of the vagina, leading to metaplasia. What happens in metaplasia? That change of the exposed columnar epithelium to squamous. So here the columnar epithelium changes to squamous, then there is formation of a new squamocolumnar junction. This small circle is the new squamocolumnar junction. Before puberty it was here, this original squamocolumnar junction, and after puberty there is a new squamocolumnar junction. So the area between these original squamocolumnar junction and new squamocolumnar junction is actually the transitional zone, and this transformation zone is the area located between the original and current squamocolumnar junction, and the majority of dysplasias and cancers arise in this transitional zone of the cervix. It must have active metaplasia in the presence of inducing agent HPV to get dysplasia. What happens in metaplasia? That it is transformation of one differentiated cell type to another differentiated cell type. And what's dysplasia? It is actually the abnormal development of cells within the tissues or organs. So we see here transformation zone. So HPV infection is actually what happens in this. There is viral integration in the transformation zone, and what happens in the transformation zone, this virus replicates and it inhibits P53, which is actually the suppressor gene. P53, which is actually the suppressor gene, and what happens here, anaplasia, when it inhibits P53, which is the suppressor gene, anaplasia occurs. And anaplasia, what is anaplasia? It is poor cellular differentiation. Poor cellular differentiation. So when the cells poorly differentiate, so it causes CIS. What is this? This is carcinoma in situ, and then it can cause invasive CA. It is actually a slow process, 10 years on average. Growth, it's by local extension, and metastasis, it occurs late. What are the risk factors? Risk factors are the human papilloma virus strains 16 and 18. This is high, associated with high risk of neoplasia, and other strains are 6 and 11 that associated with low risk. And in greater than 99% of cervical cancers, it contains one of the high risk group of the HPV types, means this 16 or 18. What are the high risk behaviors that are associated with cervical CA? It is multiple sexual partners, other sexually transmitted diseases, early age at first intercourse, high risk male partners, smoking, and poor screening. Clinical features. In clinical features, squamous cell carcinoma has exophytic pattern, fungating tumor, and adenocarcinoma is endophytic with barrel-shaped cervix. What happens in the early stage? Early stage is mostly asymptomatic. There is some discharge that is initially watery, become brown or red, and there is post-coital bleeding. It's very important point over here. What are the late manifestations? These are bleeding, either post-coital, post-menopausal, or irregular bleeding. There is pelvic or back pain. There is bladder or bowel symptoms, and some signs are there that we see friable, raised, reddened, or ulcerated area visible on the cervix. Now, Pap test. Pap test decision making chart. We see how we screen the cervical cancer. It is by the Pap test. And about Pap test, first we should know that in which patients, how and when this Pap screening is required. So in the guidelines, there is that screen all women that are greater than or equal to 25 years of age every 3 years who are or have been sexually active. Then in the age group 25 to 29, there are some weak recommendations, but in age 30 to 69, there are strong recommendations and high quality evidence. Women who are equal to or more than 70 years of age, if they have 3 normal tests in a row and there is no abnormal test in the last 10 years, they can discontinue screening. And we should screen all women who are greater than equal to 21 or who have been sexually active. And if their cytology is normal, they can be screened every 3 years. Then women who are not sexually active by age 21, they should delay cervical cancer screening until sexually active. Then pregnant women and women who are sexually active, they should follow the routine cervical screening regimen. So pregnant women, they should also follow routine cervical screening regimen, and women who have had a hysterectomy. So what are the recommendations in a woman? It's an important point, and we will see in multiple choice question that if they have total hysterectomy, then discontinue screening if hysterectomy was for benign disease and no history of cervical dysplasia or HPV infection. So if there is dysplasia or there is subtotal hysterectomy, then continue screening according to the guidelines. If even there is subtotal hysterectomy, then again continue screening according to guidelines. So Now we see this PAP test decision making chart. What happens if we have discussed that if it comes normal, so repeat cytology in 3 years. If there is inadequate sample, then again repeat cytology in 3 months. Here 3 months, and if normal, then 3 years. What is the decision making if there is atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance? Atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance we see if woman is less than 30 or more than equal to 30. If she is less than 30, then HPV or the HPV testing is unavailable. So repeat cytology in 6 months. If it comes negative, then again repeat in 6 months. So we repeat it 2 times. And again, if 2 times it comes negative, so routine screening in 3 years. We will do routine screening in 3 years. If we have repeated in 6 months and again there is atypical cells of undetermined significance, we will do colposcopy. If the woman is greater than 30 years of age, so HPV DNA testing is required. HPV DNA testing, if it comes negative, then repeat cytology in 12 months. Repeat cytology in 12 months. And if it is positive, then colposcopy. If there is low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, then we do colposcopy. If there is high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, we will do again colposcopy. If there is squamous carcinoma or other malignant changes, again colposcopy. If there are atypical glandular cells of undetermined significance, then colposcopy or with or without endometrial sampling. If there are atypical squamous cells, then again colposcopy. So the other investigations we can do, there is CBC, low HB, urine complete, chest x-ray for pulmonary mets, LFTs for hepatic mets, ultrasound. We can see pelvic mass, we will do bone scan also. Okay, the diagnosis, the biopsy, colposcopy and the biopsy of the sample. What is done in colposcopy is actually the clinical procedure that facilitates the identification and biopsy of the suspicious cells. So in colposcopy, we will apply acetic acid and identify the aceto-white lesions, punctations and mosaicism and abnormal blood vessels to guide the cervical biopsy. Endocervical curettage, what is that? We will do if the entire lesion is not visible or even no lesion is visible. So diagnostic leap, when we will do diagnostic loop electrosurgical excision procedure, when there is unsatisfactory colposcopy, means there is poor visualization or access to transformation zone, if there is discrepancy between cytology, colposcopy and histological findings, if there are positive findings and glandular abnormalities in the endocervical curettage, then we will do LEAP. If there is suspicion for endocarcinoma in situ, then we will do, if there is suspicion of adenocarcinoma in situ, we will do cold knife conization. And recurrence of lesion post ablation or excision, inability to rule out invasive disease. So consider cold knife conization if glandular abnormality suspected based on cytology. So tests permitted for FIGO clinical staging include physical exam, including examination under anesthesia, cervical biopsy, including the cone biopsy, proctoscopy, cystoscopy, ultrasound of liver, kidneys, chest x-ray, LFTs, MRI or CT or PET scan, done often to facilitate planning for radiation therapy, but the results of these do not influence the clinical staging. So what is FIGO staging classification of cervical cancer? We see in stage 1 it is confined to cervix. In 1A it is microinvasive. In 1A1 stromal invasion is there but not greater than 3 mm deep and not greater than 3 mm wide. In 1A2 3 to 5 mm deep but not greater than 7 mm wide. In 1B there is clinically visible lesion confined to cervix. So the dimensions are there. Clinically visible lesion less than equal to 4 millimeter in greatest dimension, and 1B2 clinically visible lesion greater than 4 millimeter in greatest dimension. In stage 2, it will be beyond the uterus but not to the pelvic wall or lower 1/3 of vagina. So in 2A, no obvious parametrial involvement. In 2A1, clinically visible lesion less than equal to 4 millimeter in greatest dimension. In 2A2, clinically visible lesion greater than 4 millimeter in greatest dimension, like in the 1B1, 1B2, but here it is confined to cervix. In 2B, there is obvious parametrial involvement. In 3, it extends to pelvic wall or involves lower 1/3 of the vagina or causes hydronephrosis of the kidney. In 3A, involves lower 1/3 of vagina but no extension to pelvic side wall. In 3B, extension to pelvic side wall and hydronephrosis or non-functioning kidney. In 4, carcinoma has extended beyond the true pelvis or has biopsy proven the mucosa of the bladder. It has extended to the bladder or rectum. Spread to in 4A, spread to adjacent organs, and in 4B, it has distant metastasis. Now, what we can do for prevention? There are HPV vaccines, Gardasil and Cervarix. In Gardasil, the viral strains covered are 6, 11, 16 and 18, and in Cervarix, it's covered 16 and 18. In both of them, routes of administration are intramuscular. And schedule of dosing for Gardasil is 0 to 6 months, 0, 2 and 6 months. In Cervarix, 0, 1 and 6 months. What are the side effects? Both have the same side effects: local, the redness, pain, swelling, and the general headache, low-grade fever, and GIT upsets. And the important thing is approved age. The approved age for Gardasil in the females is 9 to 45 years range, and in males 9 to 26. In Cervarix, there is females aged 10 to 25. And there are some contraindications: pregnant women and women who are nursing. And there are some points that they should be administered before the onset of the sexual activity, means before the exposure of the virus. It may be given at the same time as Hep B or other vaccines using a different injection site. It is not for the treatment of active infection. And the women who were previously infected by HPV, they should also receive the vaccine, because the virus has 4 types of strains. So therefore, the vaccine is still indicated for sexually active females or those with a history of previous infection, because it has 4 different strains. So conception should be avoided until 30 days after the last dose of the vaccine. So conception should be delayed until 30 days after the last dose of the vaccine. What is the management of the patients for abnormal cervical histology and cervical cancer? In cervical intraepithelial neoplasia 1, SIN1, preferred option for biopsy proven SIN1 is observation, repeat assessment and cytology in 12 months, management according to cytology results. If after high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesion is there, so cytology and histology should be reviewed. If discrepancy remains, external biopsy may be considered. In SIN2 and 3, we see if woman is greater than 25 or less than 25 years age. If it is she is more than 25, then external procedures preferred for SIN2 and 3. Those with positive margins, follow up with colposcopy and directed biopsies or endocervical curettage. If she is less than 25, observe with colposcopy at 6 months interval for up to 24 months before the treatment is considered. So the important thing is during pregnancy, SIN2 or 3 suspected or diagnosed, So repeat colposcopy and treatment is delayed until 8 to 12 weeks after delivery. So it is a very important point. Management of patients with abnormal in stage 1A1. What we do in 1A1, loop electrosurgical excision procedure, LEEP, and if future fertility is desired and the lesion is also less than or equal to 2 cm, so we will do LEEP, LEEP. Simple hysterectomy is done if future fertility is not desired. In stage 1A2 and 1B1, typically treated with radical hysterectomy and pelvic lymphadenectomy. For fertility preservation, if tumor is less than 2 cm and may have radical trachelectomy, we will do radical trachelectomy, in which there is only removal of cervix and parametria and nodes instead of radical hysterectomy in the early disease. Chemoradiation therapy we do if adverse high risk prognostic factors on radical surgical specimens such as positive pelvic lymph nodes. What happens in stage 1B2 if greater than 4 cm and 2, 3 and 4? We do primary chemoradiation therapy. CT is done to see the extent of disease for nodes positive on PET. Primary chemoradiation. Abnormal pap test in pregnancy. Pap test should be done at all initial prenatal visits. If there is abnormal pap or suspicious lesion, refer to colposcopy. If diagnostic conization is required, then it should be deferred until second trimester to minimize the risk of pregnancy loss. If there is invasive cancer ruled out, means if she has no invasive cancer, the management of dysplasia is deferred until completion of pregnancy and she can deliver vaginally. If pre-invasive cancer is present, then management depends upon the prognostic factors, degree of fetal maturity and the patient wishes. What is the general recommendations in the stage 1? Consider pregnancy termination, management with either radical surgery or trachelectomy if she desires future fertility. Otherwise, hysterectomy or subsequent concurrent chemoradiation therapy. General recommendations in T2 and T3: delay of the therapy until viable fetus and C-section for the delivery, with concurrent radical surgery or subsequent concurrent chemoradiation therapy. So now we will do practice questions. We see the first case. You have provided care for a 27-year-old married monogamous female for several years. 1 year ago she had abnormal cervical cytology. 1 year ago she had abnormal cervical cytology that was interpreted as atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance. She had repeated cervical cytology 6 months ago. Now before 1 year she had it, and after 6 months, means 2 times she had because of atypical squamous cells, and again last week. Now after atypical squamous cells she had 2 times, before 6 months and now last week. Both are reported as negative. Which of the following would be the most appropriate next step? So we have already discussed that if after ASC, atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance, she should repeat it 2 times, and in this scenario she had it 2 times and both times negative. So in this case, now she should be resuming a routine screening protocol. Because recommended management strategies, women with ASC include repeat cytology at 4 to 6 months, then immediate colposcopy and reflex DNA testing for oncogenic HPV types, should 2 repeat cytology examination at 4 to 6 months. If it proved negative, then the patient can safely return to routine cytological examinations. Now question number 2. 26-year-old woman comes to the office for a gynecological examination. On a physical examination, her cervix appears friable with a slight area of ulceration. There are several perineal and vaginal lesions that appear as cauliflower-like projections. The result of the pap smear, which turned 1 week, show mild dysplasia. Which of the following factors in this patient history most closely correlates with abnormal findings on the pap smear? So She has cauliflower-like projections, so it is associated with condylomata acuminata. So, condylomata acuminata is the physical manifestation of the HPV, a sexually transmitted disease. There are several serotypes of HPV, subtype 6 and 11 causing benign cauliflower-like projections and a low-grade squamous intraepithelial lesions, and subtype 16 and 18 most commonly associated with high-grade squamous intraepithelial cervical lesions. So, the other options that are condylomata lata, it is associated with gray-white, highly infectious lesion associated with secondary syphilis. And early age at menarche has no correlation with abnormal pap smear. Early age of menarche and nulliparity has no correlation with abnormal pap smear. History of chlamydia is a reasonable answer, but chlamydia is the most common sexually transmitted cervicitis, but it has not been associated with precancerous dysplasia. So the options fit here is condylomata acuminata. Now question number 3. A 47-year-old gravida 3 para 3 is seen for physical examination. She had a total abdominal hysterectomy for the benign uterine fibroid with previous normal pap test results. Which of the following is recommended interval for pap screening in this patient? So we have already discussed in the pap screening that if there is total abdominal hysterectomy, then routine screening is not necessary. Question number 4. On routine yearly examination of an otherwise healthy 45-year-old woman, you notice a 1 cm erosive ulceration on the lower portion of the ectocervix. Which of the following is the most appropriate next step? So we have seen already, we see erosive ulceration, 1 cm erosive. So we will do punch biopsy of the lesion. So it is very important to remember that a pap smear is only a screening test for cervical cancer, but if a pap smear is done of a visible cancer, it will only show cancer about 50% of the time. With a visible lesion, we must do biopsy for the lesion to diagnose. If it is invasive cancer, then the proceedings with the appropriate staging workup is done. If the biopsy came back as microinvasive, a cone biopsy should be the next step. So the other options, although it can be a herpetic lesion, but any visible lesion of the cervix must be biopsied to rule out malignancy. Pap smear is only a screen, and in the face of a visible cancer lesion, the pap smear will not be conclusive for cancer in a significant percentage of cases. If a lesion is seen, biopsy must be done. So cone knife conization of the cervix would be done if the biopsy came back inconclusive for invasion. So if it comes inconclusive, then we will go for cold knife conization. And punch biopsy, if punch biopsy came back conclusive for a frankly invasive carcinoma, it should be at least stage 1B requiring radical hysterectomy or radiation therapy. Question number 5. The only non-sexual behavior that is consistently and strongly correlated with cervical dysplasia and cervical cancer is, so it is, we have done in risk factors, it is cigarette smoking. Question number 6. The appropriate next step in a 25-year-old woman found to have one abnormal pap smear showing HSIL is. So now this appropriate next step in a 25-year-old woman with high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, what it should be. We have done in the flow chart that after HSIL or LSIL, it should be sent for colposcopy. Now question number 7. A 36-year-old female who was scheduled to do a routine pap smear was reported to have atypical glandular cells of undetermined significance. Which of the following is the best next step? Now she has atypical glandular cell, and we have done in the flow chart that she should have colposcopy, and there is option colposcopy with endocervical curettage, so it is best and appropriate option over here. Question number 8. Which one of the following pap test results is most likely to indicate a cancerous lesion? So in this, atypical squamous cells not otherwise specified. This option looks like benign, but it is highly associated with cancer, carcinoma in situ, invasive cancer, and high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesions. A squamous cells not otherwise specified. They are most likely to indicate a cancerous lesion. Question number 9. A 72-year-old white female has had regular pap smears with normal findings for the past 30 years. She now finds it difficult and uncomfortable to undergo pelvic examination. So now she is 72 years, and we have discussed in the past 30 years she has normal findings on the pap smear. So now she is uncomfortable to undergo pelvic examination because of severe arthritis in both hips as well as vaginal atrophy. She has not been sexually active since the death of her husband 10 years ago. Which is the most appropriate approach for further screening in the cervical neoplasia? So the screening can now be discontinued because we have discussed even in the past 10 years she had normal pap smears and above 70 years of age, so screening can be discontinued. Last question. A 28-year-old woman has a cervical cytologic smear report which revealed many severely dyskaryotic cells and a few frankly malignant cells. The next step in the patient management should be colposcopy and biopsy. Colposcopy and biopsy is the next step we have already done in the flow chart, that if there are dyskaryotic cells, malignant cells, then colposcopy and biopsy is done. Thank you. Hope you have cleared all the confusions regarding pap tests and cervical CA.